The Sydney Metro City project is about to open, and trust me, thousands of people are excited. I'm actually at an open day for the Metro right now, the Victoria Cross Metro Open Day, and everyone here is so hyped.
Who could get to the city in like 10 minutes?
Faster services, less overcrowding, and more transit-oriented development as well.
It's a more reliable service because it's driverless and it doesn't share the same tracks as any of the other train services.
I'm excited to have faster connections throughout our city, especially from Chatswood to the city.
I'm excited for the outer suburbs like Tallawong to have more direct connectivity to the city. We just need to complete it now by extending Tallawong to Schofields. Get on it, NSW government.
You actually feel your back pressed against your seat when it's actually accelerating, so that is something good.
My mum lives right above this station. It's going to make visiting her a lot easier. Hi, Mum.
They're doing all of this for us just so we can get to one place to another faster than we have ever before.
Now, of course, I will be doing a deeper dive into the Sydney Metro City project before it opens, but we're not going to be talking about that today. No. Today, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room. For it turns out, Sydney is opening one train line and closing another. The Bankstown Line is due to close in a few months, with its long-awaited closure and conversion to a metro about to finally take place. With an entire one-year closure of the Bankstown Line on the cards, things are going to be rough for a while. People who are used to catching the train are now going to have to take the bus instead. But Transport for New South Wales have made a decision about these train replacement buses that I kinda dislike. So what exactly is that decision? Let's dive in this video and find out. I'm Shareth and welcome to Building Beautifully.
Before I continue, massive shout out to my monthly Ko-fi supporters. Please do consider supporting me over on Ko-fi if you can. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already, and do be sure to check out the rest of my channel, your go-to YouTube destination for all things city planning, after the video. Right now, the T3 Bankstown line runs from the city circle all the way to Liverpool and Lidcombe. But that's soon about to be replaced by a new service from Liverpool to the city circle via Regent's Park, a shuttle service from Bankstown to Lidcombe, and the piece de resistance, the Sydney Metro Southwest, from Sydenham to Bankstown.
I was told by a Sydney Metro insider about a year ago that there was a risk that the Sydney Metro Southwest could be cancelled. That didn't end up eventuating, and thank God, it would have been such a waste of money and the incredible capacity of the new metro. Workers are going to need to spend many months carefully converting the Bankstown line into a driverless metro. Now, of course, I can relate to this in many ways. It often takes me many months to finish a video, but fortunately it doesn't take me many months to achieve this clean cut. No, thanks to Manscaped, it takes me barely any time at all. Now, I was sponsored by Manscaped a few months ago, and I'm not lying when I say that ever since our last sponsorship, I have been using the Handyman weekly. It's always just so much easier with the Handyman. I don't cut myself, I shave faster than I did with razors, and I leave behind this really smooth cut. I could tell you about the convenient USB-C charger that this comes with, but see, I've actually only had to charge this once in the nearly 6 months that I've owned it. Seriously, I'm not joking right now. I swear on the grave of the Carlingford line. It just has such a ridiculously good battery. I've traveled a lot in the time since I've owned the Handyman, and it's made travel so much easier. Just pop it in your bag and head off to China, or to Argentina, or to Bankstown, or wherever you're going. Best of all, it's waterproof, so you can shave while showering. No, you can't film me while I'm showering. I'm not getting naked just for a sponsorship. We've already been over this. You want me to start an OnlyFans? Sexing sexily? Jeez, you put way too much thought into this.
So, Manscaped have generously offered all my viewers 20% off any orders, plus free international delivery. Click the link in the description and enter the promo code BUILDING to receive this limited time offer. Starting sometime between July and October this year, for 12 months the T3 will close. Commuters between Sydenham and Bankstown will be forced to take the bus.
This isn't really a new experience for those living on the Bankstown line. As far as I know, every school holiday since 2019, the line has been temporarily closed to help prepare for the final closure, and replacement buses have been run. It's not ideal, but it's the price to pay for a turn up and go service every 4 minutes on peak and every 10 minutes off peak.
However, I find the route chosen for the replacement buses a bit questionable. The buses are going to run from Bankstown to Sydenham, essentially mirroring the line that they're replacing. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that, with different buses having different stopping patterns.
But see, there's two train lines that more or less follow the route of the T3. The T8 to the south and the T2 to the north. Why not run buses the short distance to either of these train lines, instead of running them all the way into Sydenham?
Let me explain. The Sydney Metro has many benefits, but one less visible benefit is that it will remove the T3 from the city circle, opening up more capacity for the T8 and the T2, allowing their services to be increased. With all that additional capacity, why not capitalise on it and run buses to those lines from the closed T3 stations?
Now, I'll be honest, there are obvious advantages to what's currently being set up. For 1 year, the Sydney Metro will terminate at Sydenham. A metro running 15 trains an hour in the peak, with a capacity of 1,100 people, will be commencing services completely empty at Sydenham. With all that spare capacity, that sounds like the perfect place for T3 replacement buses to dump all its passengers.
Furthermore, there's customer legibility. It's much easier for commuters to understand where their replacement bus is going when it literally follows exactly the same route as the train usually does.
But let's now consider the cons of this proposal. The all-stops bus route will take 49 minutes in the evening peak from Sydenham to Bankstown, compared with the current 25-minute train trip. Buses will not only get stuck in traffic, but they will contribute to traffic, especially given they're all essentially following very similar routes. This will make things worse for everyone, both drivers and commuters. There's also the simple fact that Sydney is currently facing a shortage of bus drivers, although I'm not really going to get into that today.
Okay, so what's my proposal for bus replacements? We have to keep an all-stop service for anyone commuting locally. Now, I'm going to ignore Bankstown since they're expected to still have shuttle services to Lidcombe. I'll also ignore stations east of the Cooks River as their proximity to Sydenham kind of negates the need for alternatives, plus they have buses to the city already. So let's start with Punchbowl. It will be 38 minutes from Sydenham to Punchbowl via the 33 T3 limited stop service. Indeed, that could be even longer in peak hour. Then, the metro from Central to Sydenham will only take 7 minutes. That's a total of 45 minutes. Let's instead say that we ran a no-stops bus from Punchbowl to the nearby Kingsgrove station, which would take only 15 minutes. Then the train to Central would take another 24 minutes, totaling 39 minutes. That's quicker. Let's look at Campsie as another example. The limited stops 13 T3 will take 21 minutes, resulting in a total of 28 minutes to Central. What if we ran a bus from Campsie to Burwood instead? A no-stops bus to Burwood would take about 10 minutes. The train to Central then takes 13 minutes, resulting in a total of 23 minutes. Once again, that's quicker. Now, of course, in practice, the buses should probably make additional stops. For example, maybe the Punchbowl service could stop at Wiley Park, Lakemba and Belmore too, before heading down to Kingsgrove. Admittedly, that would probably negate the time savings.
Okay, but why bother with any of this? I mean, you're not saving that much time, if any. Well, I admit, this is less about raw time savings and more about comfort, reliability, and logistics. My proposals would ensure that more time is spent on a train and less on a bus, resulting in a more comfortable ride and one less susceptible to the unpredictability of road congestion. Furthermore, by sending buses to different destinations, you actually would help to spread out the congestion that the buses will be creating, lessening its severity, as well as avoiding a massive bottleneck forming at the one and only destination of Sydenham. Look, I know. I'm not Transport for New South Wales. Clearly, if they've decided that buses should run directly along the railway, then there must be a good reason for that, and that's that. But that's not that. Because if we rewind the clock back to 2021, they used to run replacement buses from the T3 to the T8. So these aren't my own ideas. These are abandoned Transport for New South Wales ideas. Well then, why exactly have they been abandoned? Well, according to Transport for New South Wales, they got rid of them because passengers didn't really use them. Passengers felt they were going backwards to go forwards. And now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Australian transit habits are peculiar things, and they go quite a long way to explaining why commuters would rather all get dropped off at Sydenham than take a bus to another train line. You see, we've all become rather accustomed to the idea of a no-transfer, point-to-point transit system. Every train station in Sydney has a service straight to the city, bar one train line that is about to be extended to the city. And the Olympic Park, but that doesn't really count. But let's not forget about buses.
The Northern Beaches have countless buses that take them straight to the CBD. The Hills have countless buses that take them straight to the CBD. Even the Inner West, including places like Dulwich Hill and Marrickville, which have train stations, have buses that take them straight to the CBD. This type of network, which focuses on preventing transfers, is known as a direct service network. It's simple, legible, and logical. But see, it simply costs more to run direct services from everywhere to the city. Let's say we're running buses, say, every 10 minutes from points B, C, D, E, and F to point A. Now, that's a lot of buses, so our budget is stretched. As a result, we can only run buses every 30 minutes between the suburbs. That's not ideal, and it explains why Australians don't really like transferring. If you want to go from C to D, you'll be waiting an average of 15 minutes. That might end up being longer than your journey itself.
More importantly, you end up shoveling so many buses into point A, which in our case is Sydney CBD, that the amenity of Sydney CBD is impacted severely. You have bus congestion, you have bus layover, and worst of all, you have buses that run completely empty out of the city in peak hour to restart their run. It's a waste of resources, and a waste of space that should really be handed over to pedestrians.
So what's the alternative to this? A connective network. Imagine that we instead only ran direct buses from C and E to A, and buses between suburbs everywhere else. Yes, commuters from B, D, and F do not get a direct service to A, and yes, they briefly have to move backwards to move forwards. But instead, we're able to spread out our buses more evenly across the network, meaning 10-minute frequencies for every service. As a result, your average wait is only ever 5 minutes, which is far more palatable. Yes, you probably have to transfer to get to A, and yes, your journey may end up taking slightly longer, but you also end up with better services to other suburbs. Also, might I remind you that most suburbs in the West don't get direct bus services to the city, so this is what they already are used to doing. In the end, it's about the greater good.
This all explains why commuters were less inclined to take the bus to the T8 or the T2. It's because Australians are simply not used to the concept of transferring. We aren't used to the idea of going backwards to go forwards, simply because we've never really had to. Our public transport networks were designed for one purpose only: to funnel people into the CBD. So in our heads, it made more sense to simply follow the exact same route of the closed railway, even though ironically enough, that route still involves a transfer, because at least you're going forwards to go forwards. It's more legible, it makes sense, and the T3 replacement buses will suffer for it.
To be clear, there are other reasons why we don't like transferring. Maybe the slower journey has more seats, that's more comfortable. There's also an element of risk depending on reliability. What if your next bus or train just doesn't show up? Also, there's the difficulty in transferring too. Does it involve a long walk? You get the idea. By no means is there just one reason for our habits. Okay, let's play around with some citywide network redesigns. I'm going to take the Hills as an example, and I'm going to admit that anyone who lives along the 610X or 607X express bus routes is now going to hate me, but a more efficient use of bus resources would be to terminate the buses at the Macquarie University metro station when the metro is extended to the city. As a result, buses would be going a shorter distance, freeing up buses in the Hills to instead act as feeder buses to local metro stations. For example, most feeder buses to Cherrybrook metro station only run every 30 or even 60 minutes. You could use the freed up resources to run more services to the metro station instead, reducing the number of cars that drive to the station. Another example, the Inner West. What's happening here is that those who live along these routes, a selection of routes that run along King Street and Newtown, get on their bus and take a slow journey into the city instead of going in the opposite direction, transferring at their local station. A rerouting of these routes to other local stations in the inner west could be a better use of resources and help to strengthen intersuburban connections. Now, I know that those buses actually do serve an important purpose, namely serving commuters along King Street and at UCID. That's why my proposals are merely thought experiments rather than solid ideas. Data would help to inform these ideas, but said data is sadly not publicly available.
So what's my recommendation from all of this? Well, it's probably too late to redo the replacement buses now, but once the metro opens, the possibility of connecting the T2, M1 and T8 with high-frequency north-south bus services must be explored. That way, commuters on other railway lines and in other suburbs will get to benefit from the high-frequency metro services that will be running. It will also help to improve intersuburban connectivity, reducing unnecessary trips into the CBD and out again, and eliminate car journeys that are now more appealing to do by public transport.
Anyways, that pretty much brings us to the end of the video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because in just a few short weeks, I'll be releasing a deep dive into the Sydney Metro project, featuring everything you need to know before the next stage of Australia's biggest public transport project opens. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Why do you want them to change the route of the 607 at 610X?
Well, back in my day, the 607X used to run to Montelindo, and then when they opened the metro, they terminated that and they started in Bella Vista, which is just one station away. So if I can't have it, no one can.